Hey guys, I'm Jacob.
And I'm Dan. And I hope you guys are ready for some fun because we've got a challenge for you.
Yes, we certainly do. Because today's big idea is we can share God's love by being compassionate. But before we get into the challenge, I think it might help if we look at what exactly compassion is.
Absolutely. Compassion is when we show concern for others and have sympathy for them. But let's be a little bit more practical about that. Jacob, can you think of an example from your life where someone had compassion on you?
Yeah, I think I can. Particularly one time in school, I had a teacher that I did not get along with, and I was not doing well in her class. By the end of the semester, I was getting really overwhelmed. But she saw that and she showed compassion for me. She sat me down and helped me get back on track.
That is so awesome. It's great that even though you guys didn't get along, she saw that you were struggling and she had compassion on you. Let's watch today's God story, but stay tuned. We've got that challenge ready for you afterwards.
It was weird. I was watching this documentary, and do you know why the inside of elephants' ears are pink? So they can hide in cherry trees. Have you ever seen an elephant in a cherry tree? See, it works. Well, hello again, my friends. I'm very happy to see you. You know, one of the hardest things about being a friend is the fact that you actually emotionally make yourself vulnerable with another human being. A human being that will, and hear me when I say this, will, at some point or points, harm you. That's just part of being vulnerable with each other. We all make mistakes. We all sometimes do things by accident to hurt each other. And let's be honest, sometimes we do it on purpose as well. But let's not, as the saying goes, toss the baby out with the bathwater. Let's not just decide to be all locked away and on our own. That's not good either. That's actually a worse option. But that's not exactly what I want to talk about today. Today, I want to sort of show and highlight compassion. The ability to sit with another human being, someone you care about, in their suffering, even when, maybe especially when you don't have the words to comfort them. If you have someone that is willing to sit with you in the down times and that you're willing to sit with when they're in the down times, in that person, you have a true friend. And that's our big idea. We can share God's love by being compassionate. So what do I mean by the word compassion? Well, let me start not just by defining it, but by sharing with you a story. And this story is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 7, verses 11 to 17. Soon afterward, Jesus went with his disciples to the village of Nain, and a large crowd followed him. A funeral procession was coming out as he approached the village gate. The young man who had died was a widow's only son, and a large crowd from the village was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. "Don't cry," he said. Then he walked over to the coffin and touched it, and the bearers stopped. "Young man," he said, "I tell you, get up." Then the dead boy sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Great fear swept the crowd, but they praised God, saying, "A mighty prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people today." And the news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding countryside. So basically what's going on and why there's such a large crowd is because this woman is a widow, which obviously means she lost her husband. Her husband has died. And now her only son has also died, which is just on any human level an overwhelming tragedy to have lost both these people so close to her. But also in Jesus' day and age, when there's no social safety nets and where women have very defined and very limiting and oppressive roles, this is also an unbelievable tragedy in that this woman is left on her own in a very harsh and unforgiving culture. So she doesn't have her husband to take care of her and look after her, and she's already been married, which means another man is not likely to come along and marry her and take her into his home. Now that was the job of their son, is to take care of his mother, but now her son is gone, leaving her with no one. And sadly, more often than not, in that culture, when a woman was left without a husband or a child, she ended up in some form of a sex trade, or just left to beg and eventually die, poor and alone. It is a terrible, terrible tragedy, and it has basically doomed this woman not just to mourn the loss of her husband and her son, but also it has doomed her to a terrible fate and quite possibly death. And all of this stirs compassion in Jesus. This miracle is entirely based on Jesus' heart, his compassion. So he walks up to this grieving and heartbroken woman and tells her not to cry. He walks over to this deceased young man and tells him to get up. And he does. In the midst of grief and a procession of mourning, Jesus' compassion turns it into a celebration and a party. Compassion moves us in our heart and our belly. It inflicts pain upon us, not for ourselves, but because of the experiences of others. And truly that has to be the most divine element in any single one of us. And so many Christians have struggled because Jesus of the New Testament and God of the Old Testament sometimes seem very different. The Old Testament God seems very violent and jealous and punitive and frankly mean and grumpy. And if you do bad, lightning bolts. But then we have Jesus. And this story has compassion and heals a boy, brings him back from the dead and restores him to his mom. But as we read through what we now call the Old Testament, as we look to the God that the Jews have called Yahweh and Elohim and all sorts of different other names of these characters, remember that this God was compassionate as well. And that Jesus shows us the face and the heart of God and calls us to do the same for others, to show other people the face and the heart of God. And how do we do that? Be compassionate. Be a kind person. Be willing to look past your own rights and your own desires and your own, well, this is what I want, and to just sit with someone else in their time of suffering. Celebrate when they celebrate and weep when they mourn. In so doing, you become as Christ. So if I can leave you with anything, be kind. Be compassionate. All right, I'm Jamie Robertson. You are you. Both of those things make me very happy, and I'll see you next time.
The woman who came in to pour perfume on Jesus was an outsider, a sinner, someone that the other men would avoid. But Jesus had compassion for her.
Absolutely. This was one of the ways that Jesus showed compassion for people throughout his life. He looked out for people on the margins, the sinners, the outsiders.
That's exactly right. And that brings us into our challenge for today. We want you to find someone and show them love or care, even if they didn't ask for it. And the trick here is that we want you to do it in a way that will be fun for both you and the other person.
Yeah, and if you're looking for ideas, check out Nathan's story and see how he lives out his creativity and passion while showing compassion for others.
When I was a kid, I just loved the sounds of the kitchen. You know, the crackling of the oil in the frying pan and getting my hands in the flour. It was just so much fun. I'm Nathan. I love music, I love sports, and I love food. Currently, I'm the food service coordinator at Yonge Street Mission in Toronto. I oversee all the meals that go in and out of our organization, which feeds people who live in poverty, from young kids to seniors. Because of the nature of what we do, I don't always have particular ingredients to make what I'd want to make out of a certain meal. It really requires me using my imagination and just thinking of ways and creative ways to make a great meal of just what we have. It is important to me to create these meals to be the very best, because that is what these people deserve. These people are a part of God's creation, and they're our brothers and sisters, and this is the way we show love for them. Tonight, I'm having friends over, and I'm going to make them rack of lamb, stuffed turkey, a beautiful mixed green salad with a tomato and bocconcini salad, and a wonderful vegetable medley with some Parisienne potatoes. When I'm making a meal, the first thing I think about during the process is just what that plate is gonna look like. And I just visualize it and imagine it, where the meat is gonna go, the colors that are involved in that, and then work backwards. And what do I need to make sure that plate is gonna look the way I want it to end up. The thing that inspired me most to be a chef was just my love for food. I love all different types of foods from different regions of the world, different textures, smells, colors. Food is just so different everywhere you go. It's something that brings us all together, so I love it. I'm just so fascinated with food. I really love food. The tools I absolutely need in my kitchen are my knives. Can't really do anything, start anything without my knives. Need a nice good wooden spoon and a spatula to obviously stir and to taste. You don't really need anything else but your spoon and your spatula, and you can eat a meal right there. I definitely feel a connection with God when I cook, because that's where my creativity comes from. My passion, my talent for cooking comes from God. And then the skills that I've developed in cooking, use it as worship. I just believe that God smiles down when you're using all your talents, whatever it is. I'm much more creative when I'm cooking for others. It opens up my creativity, helps to expand my creativity, and I just love the reaction of people enjoying food.
It's delicious. I love that.
This is so good.
At the end of the meal, I want to hear people chewing, forks and knives clinking on the plates, people licking their fingers, and that's it.
Yay! Nathan and dinner and friends.
Nathan is such a compassionate person, and you can see it in the way that he fully taps into his creativity, whether he's cooking for his friends or for people in need.
Exactly. I found it really spoke to me when he said that it's important to make the very best meals for people who live in poverty because that's what they deserve. He sees them as his brothers and sisters, and that is truly showing God's love to others.
Absolutely. And don't forget this week's challenge. Remember to have fun while you're showing God's love. Now let's break into our small groups and see what this looks like in our own lives.
Bye.